everyone, it's Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 62 of my Metal Vault, where I will be exploring and showing you my favorite albums within heavy metal to thrash metal, death metal, black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it, all that excellent stuff. As well as talking about the albums, I will also be talking about the bands, so a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And I mentioned them in my last video. I didn't say what album I was going to be talking about, but you can see down there which one it is. I mentioned them in my Deeds of Flesh episode, because I'm looking at my notes, looking at my list of episodes here. And the next one you're also going to love as well. But we have got some horror, worship, death, metal, grindcore, and I'll get into that in a bit. The horror aspect of the album, the horror theme. And yeah, this band is Impetigo. So there's probably a lot of fans out there that would have checked these guys out back in the day, but then a lot of them were like just focusing on the more bigger ones. But then would have gone back to this band like maybe around the time they did their last show on the 21st of July 2007 at Central Illinois Metal Fest. And yep, got it right. And what a show that I've seen footage of the show, and man, had that same level of aggressiveness that they do on this album and also their first one. But the one I'm showing you, I found this at Bloodstock, and I was just like, can't believe I found it. No one else was having it. So once again, Impetigo, and this is their 1992 album, their second and final album, Horror of the Zombies. And it still holds up 32 years later. This came out on the 5th of June 1992. 10 tracks all together, released by Wild Rags Records, which I don't think are going anymore. I will double check that now. Nope, no longer going. But I had quite a lot of bands on there. Deeds of Flesh being one of them, along with obviously Impetigo, Order from Chaos. If you're more into your really underground bands, you're gonna know who that is. Abhorrent, which not the Finnish band, but the one from Brazil, as well as Ancient Rites from Belgium. Behemoth, of course, the mighty Behemoth. Blasphemy, Blood, Syntax from Sweden, and just countless other bands. Yeah, one thing I like to do as well, get the artwork out of the case so you can see it, so it's not glaring off the case. And to quickly get the guy up who did this was someone called Cannibal Jim Reesing. Unfortunately passed away on the 3rd of November 2023. So he did the artwork for this one, and as well as their first album, which I'll mention now. Your Timo Mondo Cannibal. I probably just butchered the first name, but cracking albums. He did the artwork for that, as well as artwork for another band called Altered Existence, which I believe on still going now. Yep, still going now. Also from Illinois. And what cool artwork this is as well. And wait, let's get back there. There's the guys themselves. So I got all their names up so I can get them all correct. So this one here is Mark, Scott, Dan, and Stevo. And it's been these same guys since this band started. I don't think they had any more anyone else in the band, so it's all just been the same members. I mean, Scott joined the band in '89, so it would have just been them as a three piece to begin with. So it would have been Mark, Dan, and Stevo at first, and then Dan came in 2 years after they formed. So, and I have seen footage of them playing as a three piece. So it would have just been these two and Mark over here. Scott, like I said, joined 2 years later. And I think might be a re-release, unless someone else has got this one as well. And I don't know if it does this. But you got the artwork, you got artwork over here, and pictured there, some photos of the band just doing various different things, just hanging out. And obviously probably got a few live pictures there of them. And lyrics. And some artwork in the middle. Some more lyrics. And obviously who plays on the album. And yeah, just a cracking album. And obviously I will go through everything before no, I will talk about the songs before anything else. Actually, before the songs, that's what I meant to say. Got the CD here with Impetigo and Horror of Zombies in green, as well as the song titles. And just to rewind a bit, I will talk about the band before I talk about the songs and this album again, of course. So, again, these guys, they formed in 1987 in Bloomington, Illinois. They were called Slow Death, but before this band was even a thing, Stevo had a band called Sergeant Rock, but I can't find anything on them, so can't talk too much about that band. But after that band broke up, then Slow Death formed, and then that quickly changed to Impetigo. And they released their first demo in that same year called All We Need Is Cheese. And that was a 12-track demo, independent release, 3 songs of which were covers. And then that goes on to their second demo, which was released in 1989, where this is when Scott would have joined the band, called Giallo, which, if anyone's heard the demo, they probably used, and comment down below if you have heard it, they would have used a lot of samples from Giallo films, because of course Giallo is yellow in Italian. So yeah, this would have been the one to feature Scott for the first time, because on the first demo it would have just been them as a free piece, but for guest vocals they had someone called Jeff Wilson doing additional vocals on track number 6, just to add that in there. And I think, yeah, just for the Giallo demo, it was just them, no guest vocalists or any other guests, like guest guitar solos, which, when you hear this band, you don't really hear a lot of guitar solos as such, maybe a few here and there. And then it gets on to their 1990 promo tape, which was also an independent release from, of course, the year of 1990. 7 tracks. And their first EP that same year, which was released on the Whisper in Darkness records, no longer going. When I was looking up labels, and yeah, they haven't been active for a long time. So this is called Blueo Omega, and I think I just butchered that first name. And then that will go on to their debut of that same year, and I mentioned it already, but it's worth mentioning it again because it is a great album. Utano Mondo Cannibal, 16 tracks overall. First release on Wild Rags Records, and obviously they were one of the last known bands to be featured on that label. Before I get on to the other releases, just to reiterate what bands I've mentioned already. So Blood, Blasphemy, Behemoth. Let's mention some new ones here. Damage, which was a thrash metal band. Never heard of them, but I'll give them a good listen to because I also love my thrash. Dying Fetus, also on this label for a bit. Emperor. Who else that were people were now Hellbound from Sweden. Who else? Internal Bleeding, who I've had Chris on as a guest. And Necrophagia, of course, the Mighty Killjoy. And Necrophobic as well, also Swedish death metal legend, Swedish death and black metal at its one of the absolute best bands of Black and Death. But let's get back to the death metal grindcores, and then we go on to the next one from Impetigo, which was Faceless. Obviously, the cover that I see on here is a lot different from this one. You can see the logo and of course the name of the EP. I got this at Black City Records because someone bought in a box of like rare demos, and others I got in my little bit here with all my cassettes. So yeah, you can see the logo, side B here, and then you got side A over here, and of course the record label's name right there, as well as little band picture here. Lyrics here. I did show this in my collection update with this one on and the other releases as well. That, you know, those rare releases, which are quite hard to find, and this one would have been really hard to find as well. But I thought I'd show that quickly as I have it. Full track release. And then the split with the band I just mentioned from Germany, Blood, called Artifato Salvation to the Dead. I probably just butchered the first name. Again, I apologize. 2 tracks from Impetigo, one of which features on this album, and 3 from Blood. And that was an independent release, limited to 2,000 copies. And then that gets on to their final album that they released as a band, Horror of the Zombies. And let's get into the songs. Now, I always like to get on with Talon here. So we got the first track, which starts it all off with Boneyard. And a few of these songs do have samples. I know the one, I think this one has a sample, and I know the one after this one does, because it so starts off with, you know, pure death metal grindcore, you know, just absolute pure death metal grindcore madness with the guitars, the bass, the drums, vocals, just sheer amount of madness. And then that goes into I Work for the Street Cleaner, which is one of 3 long tracks on here that goes to that length, because the other one is 7 minutes 11 seconds. This one's 7 minutes and 12 seconds. One is 5 minutes and 12 seconds, and the other one is 6 minutes and 52 seconds. So yeah, and the others are like the 1 to 2, 3, 4 minute mark. So I Work for the Street Cleaner, carrying it on. And then Wizard of Gore has that bit of a mid-tempo part, and then it kicks back in to what people like, because they're all those who just like fast, fast, fast. They don't like anything mid tempo or slow. But again, you can't like everything. But I like stuff that's, it can be really fast, mid tempo, or really slow, so like really slow, like Funeral Doom. Now that goes on to Monterey. Really, really cool name as well, and became one of my favorite tracks after listening to this album again. And again, keeping up that sheer aggression, and that goes into Cannibal Ballad, Ballet, and really, really solid. Again, with bands like this, they just know how to keep that level of aggression going, and it. But actually, thinking about it, this one has no like fast, aggressive parts. It's like it's Stevo doing his vocals, like his growling and his, the grindcore, screamy, shouty vocals that you hear, but with the pitch shifter over it. But when you usually hear pitch shifter, you hear that on bands like Regurgitate from Sweden and Last Days of Humanity and various other gore grind bands, even early Carcass with Reeker Putrefaction and Symphonies of Sickness. And then that goes into Trap Them, Kill Them, which is one that I play on my radio show, and I haven't done that in a while, but obviously this one song I've played a bunch, and I played on my Halloween show last year. Starts off with that mid-tempo, and then it just kicks right in, and then just music cuts down as Steva's vocals at the end. Really solid there. And then Cannibal Lust, the shortest track on this album. Still sheer aggressive guitar playing, sheer bass work. The drumming is manic as hell. Same with Defiling the Grave. And because, like I said, some of these do have that mid-tempo part, which is cool because it gives you that little bit of a break. You think, okay, it's got that little bit of break, and then it just kicks back in again. And I think this one, if I remember from when I was listening to it earlier, has the sample from Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, which is a very underrated film, which has You Do Care. Everyone knows You Do Care. If not, go check out some of the films he's been in. He's a fantastic actor. Uh, you'll probably recognize the line as soon as you hear it. And of course, one of the songs would be Cannibal Lust. I think has the sample from Cannibal Holocaust in there. And then we got onto Staff Terrorist. Still carrying on, the aggressiveness of what death metal and grindcore brings. Just sheer madness, sheer brutality, just excellent stuff. And then we got the last song, which I think ties into a film that came out in the 70s called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, which is also called Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue. This one's called Breakfast at the Manchester Morgue. So, sorry, Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. That's what the other title for Let Sleeping Corpses Lie is. Breakfast at Manchester Morgue, that became another favorite track of mine. Track number 6 is the main favorite, but this one really, really cool. I think this one is either this one or one of the others that had a sample from that film. I've not actually watched it, so I don't have a clue. But and that ends the album, and what ends to an already aggressive underground album. You're like, this is pure underground goodness. And it came out in the year of a lot of other albums that year. So let's get through a lot of the albums from the same year as this. So, Vulgar Despair Power by Pantera, Dirt by Alice in Chains, Danzig 3, How the Gods Kill, that's from Danzig. Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth. Amorphosis, first album. Highest released an album that year. Black Sabbath's Dehumanizer. Images and Words by Dream Theater. Beyond the Crimson Horizon by Solitude Eternus. A Blazing Northern Sky by Dark Throne. The Law by Exorder. Fear of the Dark by Iron Maiden. Body Count's debut. Shades of God by Paradise Lost. Um, uh, Demolition Hammer as well. Faith No More. Retribution by Maverick Creation, which I've mentioned on here. Uh, Slumber of Sullen Eyes by Demigod, excellent finish. Death metal, definitely give them a listen. The Incomplete by Obituary, The Fourth Crusade by Bolt Thrower, Tomb of the Mutilated by Cannibal Corpse, Legion by Deicide, The Ultimate Incantation. What a debut from Vader. Sleep's Hollow Mountain by Sleep, Last One on Earth by Asphyx. Utopia Banished by Napalm Death. War released an album that year. Venom released an album that year. Somewhere Far Beyond by Blind Guardian. Ministry released an album that year. Tiamat Clouds came out that year. Extreme Conditions Demand Extreme Responses by Brutal Truth. And Unorthodox by Edge of Sanity, and The Ritual by Testament, and the debut by At the Gates, The Red in the Sky is Ours, and there's so much more. Pure by Godflesh. Yeah, this goes on. And this would have came out that same year, but a lot of people would have overlooked it at the time and then just checked it out and probably kicking themselves thinking, why didn't I check this out back in the day? If that was me back in the day and I didn't check this out back then, but then checked it out now, like, I wish I checked it out back then. So, but again, isn't you're never too late to listen to something that's 32 years old or 42 years old or whatever, however long it's been out for. And you can tell with this album, because I mentioned the horror film samples, you can tell these guys are horror fans through and through. Definitely with this. The passion's there with the music, of course, but the passion's there for their love of horror. Same with Mortician, Seven Doors, Gravecore, both bands by Ryan, who I've had on here. You can tell there's that love for horror, and I also love my horror films, as you know if you've watched my channel for a long time. And of course, a lot of the songs are clues to what films they're singing about, or play, what ones they're paying homage to. Because obviously, these guys, Mortician, there's probably a lot of other bands after them that have done it, just use samples from horror films because they're horror fans, and you got if you love horror films and you love death metal and you want to put some samples from your favorite horror films in there, you go and do it. Just go and do it. And there's quite a few on here. The first album I think had a lot more than this because obviously this is only 10 tracks. The first one was 16 tracks, but still a solid release. And I think I mentioned as well in one of my other episodes, and I've mentioned it probably in my last one as well. I was going to find more underground stuff. I mentioned before I was going to pick albums that people probably don't know. This is probably one that a lot of you watching this have absolutely no idea about, but I highly recommend you go check these guys out. If you love, if you're more into your death metal and you don't like grindcore, you might not like it as much. If you're more into your grindcore and you don't like death metal, you might not like it as much. But if you like death metal and grindcore, these guys are both. And of course, Blood, very similar in that same vein. I don't think they use any samples from films, but in terms of that same aggressive style, definitely. But these guys here, really, really, really nailed it with this album here, and of course their first album as well. Sorry, my throat's getting a bit dry. Um, you know, I do my overall conclusions, and I'm still going to do them the same way. It's heavy, it's aggressive, it's well engineered, and just to get the guys up who were on here, Warren was the guest vocalist on track number 8, and he's done guest vocals for other bands. For the Steva did the art concept for this, but like I said, Jim did the cover art, and he passed away last year. Producers one is Dave, and he did stuff for a band called Church of Misery, as well as the debut for these guys. And Mark, who was another producer who passed away March of this year. And he's done stuff for obviously these guys, the Faceless EP, for Church of Misery, for Blood Cult, and Superchrist. Now there's Church of Misery I mentioned here, also from Bloomington. Like, these guys were doom death metal, but I know there's another band from Japan with the same name. I should know, I've seen them live and they're excellent. So to get back to it, is heavy, aggressive, well produced, well mixed, well engineered. Uh, uh, Complete dedication to the to all the guys playing their instruments. Steva's vocals just fit really well with this album, as of course the debut. It's a perfect, just a really, really awesome homage to horror. Definitely for fans of not just if you're not just if you're fans of death metal, but not just fans of death metal on its own, but also fans of horror. You're definitely gonna love this because it pays homage so well to horror, and pretty much speaks to horror fans as well as to say the other band, Mortician, who I've mentioned on here. So those two bands definitely, these would be guys that you would get on with so well. And of course, it's a timeless masterpiece. Definitely a timeless masterpiece, as well as the next one I got after this one, and I will mention who that is at the end of this video, but then list the other bands and albums in the community post. But yeah, definitely this is a timeless masterpiece, along with the other albums that I will be showing on here. And yes, I will get their debut if I can find it. I was just lucky enough to find this, and I'm glad I did, and it's going nowhere. Definitely an album for fans of death metal, grindcore, horror films from the 70s and 80s primarily. And just for fans of sheer aggressive music. Very, very well done to all four the lads on here. And it'd be cool if they could get this band back together, but it's unlikely that they will. Because I know Steva, he's currently doing other bands, but the other three have since stopped, so I don't know if there's ever going to be a reunion. But if there is ever now a reunion and they decide to do it again, and they do multiple shows that do come to the UK, unlikely, but just picture it. If it happened, go to it. I need this. I need to see this band live, and it would be good to see him live. But like I said, it'd be unlikely. But we can. But we can dream. We can picture it. Seeing these guys on stage one more time. Once again, Impetigo and Horror of the Zombies. really cool album here. More like that to come, and that is it for the end of this episode. And I love an album that can pay a good homage to horror and sci-fi, and because like I said, you can tell these guys are horror fans. Absolutely. Because they knew what films they were gonna write lyrics for, and you know what ones they were gonna write about, and their personal favorites. But like I said, if you're a fan of death metal, you're most likely a fan of horror. Such as myself, Ryan from Seven Doors and Grindcore, of course the Mortician lads, various amount of my other mates who love horror as well, because half of them will love death metal, but most of them won't like death metal, but love horror films. But death metal and horror go just like that, hand in hand. Death metal and horror are like the perfect ones. But then I've heard some bands that are not death metal, which are more on the thrash metal side, black thrashy, like black and thrash metal side, that have that theme of horror, and it works really well. But for me, and I'm guessing for a lot of you out there as well, death metal and horror are the best combination. And I'm hoping to find a lot more bands in there that have done what Impetigo's done, what Mortician has done, and still continue to do. There's going to be a lot of them out there. I know, because obviously I mentioned just two of them now, Seven Doors and Gravecore. Those two. Check them out. Definitely check them out if you love horror and death metal. So you love your slashers, your giallos, your zombie films, and your heavy, aggressive, evil sounding music. Put those together, what have you got? One hell of a great EP, demo, or album, or compilation. So yeah, definitely one that I would recommend to those who are fans of death metal and grindcore and 70s and 80s horror. And for the next episode, like I said, I don't usually do this, so I'll be doing it in the community post, but I'll just do it for this episode. I got an absolute legend. Everyone knows him. He's been writing, creating music for so many years. I'm not going to say what album it is because I want you to see the album for yourself. And if it's not one you've checked out before, then check it out. But you're gonna know this name, the man, the legend, Devin Townsend, will be in my 63rd episode. So thank you very much for tuning into this episode. And I forgot to say this in my last video because again, uh, mentioned in my last video why I didn't do a video last time. Don't forget to like this video, share it around, comment down below. So if anyone's watching this and has seen Impetigo live, what was your overall impressions of him? Where was it you saw him? Was it in Illinois? Was it in another part of the States? Or did you see him somewhere else? And what was the first album you picked? What or have you got the demos? And did you pick him up at the shows? And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with everything that I got coming up. So more of this series. One big, huge collection update is coming because I didn't do August, so hopefully I can get it done this month. More chats along the way. Obviously, I got other things going on as well. but I will keep making these videos because I've been declining a bit on them. Haven't been on top of them, and I can only apologize for that. And yeah, I'm very sorry for that. But I am back. I will be doing these a lot more. But for the next one of the next episodes I got, which will be on the 13th of September, I will be filming that Thursday, but scheduling it for Friday just so you know now, because I'm actually playing a gig on that day with my other band, which, if you're in the Bristol area, come on down because it's pretty much a lot of stuff I've been mentioning, like death metal, grindcore, uh, death grind, and some thrash, some doom, some punk. It's going to be a good night. But yeah, thank you for tuning in to this episode. I've been Jake of Jake's Metal Chat. Keep that banner of metal well and truly high, and I will see you all again in the next episode of my Metal Vault.